Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and happy Easter, everyone. It's the day of the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Special day today. Put the Jesus back in Easter.
All right.
My mom used to say that about Christmas. Put the,
you know what,
put the Christ back in Christmas.
You look like a marshmallow peep
not
today.
right Xmas in my household. You know what? I am a marshmallow peep. Thank you very much. They weren't vegan, those marshmallow peeps, or I'd buy them for my kids. I especially love the rabbits where you can fold the ears down low. We were joking this morning about Mara. Mara wants it all.
She wants it all.
She wants it all. So we started singing the Waylon Jennings song, Put Another Log on the Fire. And it brings me to a very interesting story about my mother on Easter.
Okay.
It actually has nothing to do with Easter, but I don't know if I told you the story. My mom worked for Waylon Jennings. And you don't know the story. It's going to blow your mind. My mom worked for Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson.
Wow.
Because their manager, she was like the secretary for their manager in Connecticut. And all these famous, like in the 70s, nobody knew about country if you lived in Connecticut. I don't think they did. But I was like fine-tuned with country music. I had albums and albums. I knew Willie before he got big, Waylon Jennings before he blew up. I knew everything about him. And they all loved my mother. She talked to them regularly on the phone. And I kid you not. And guess what happened one day? And the boss loved her, the manager and the assistant managers. They all loved my mom. And then one day,
Willie came to your home.
No, check this out. My mom came home very upset. And she said, "You're not going to believe what happened today. I was fired." I was only like 9 years old. She said, "I was fired." I said, "Why did they fire? They love you there." She goes, "I don't know. They just fired me. They just said, you got to get all your stuff. You got to get out of here today." They fired her immediately. And then she was so upset because she was so close to the person who was the manager.
Yeah.
She went back and talked to them, and she said, it was nothing personal, but you were shipping boxes of drugs to them in the mail.
Without her
and
knowledge?
We all got busted by the FBI, and we're all going down, and we didn't want you to take a hit. Is that an unbelievable story?
Okay.
My mom was a drug mule?
Country music, drug mule. Could write a song about that.
True story, man. So happy Easter. I don't know what that has to do with Easter. We just had an Easter egg hunt, and I'm excited because me and my son our whole family's going to New York City today to ride bicycles around Central Park for Easter, and then they're going to drop us off at Kaustubha's house, and me and Kaustubha are going to have pillow fights and pizza today.
Hold it. Let me get this straight. You're going to come down early and go biking around Central Park first.
Yeah.
Am I
Dinner
invited?
later. Huh?
Am I invited?
Do you got a bicycle?
I got a city bike.
You got a city bike? Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I guess not. It's a family thing. All right, just try it. All right.
We'll see.
Cool.
So it's Q&A day today. If you're new to the show, we do questions and answers every Saturday because on our spiritual journey, questions come up. And I want to just preface this with I don't have the answers for life.
Okay.
I just want to put that out there. I don't people ask me questions like I got my act together. But we try our best, and we try to keep it in line with the teachings of the Bhagavatam. But these aren't absolute truths. These are our own personal experiences. So you don't have to write this in stone, but people ask us questions. This is our job to do. And, the entire book that we study all week, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is a book filled with questions and answers. And in that book, they tell stories that have happened previously. Sometimes they go back, one generation, 3 generations. Sometimes they go back millennia, because the questions and answers about spiritual life, this is the actual conversation. This is the actual real news. Any other news makes you feel a little exhausted after. Ever feel exhausted after reading the news?
I don't read that far into it that I get exhausted.
Good for you. I was talking to Shyamasundar Prabhu, who's going to be a guest on our show. Everybody, a lot of you know Shyamasundar and love him. And we were talking about how politics can suck you in like a glue trap. And he said, well, that means, Raghunath, that there's politics in the spiritual realm. But they all have to do with how to serve Krishna better. And I was really enjoying thinking of like that. Everything in this world is like a perverse reflection of something very transcendental. So there's spiritual politics. With that. All right, my friend. Shall we dive into some Q&As?
Yeah.
All right.
I think you got a question for me first, correct?
Yeah, you're first, my friend. Kaustubha, this is from a Zoomer. Oh, it's Sherry Sobensinski. She's a regular Zoomer. I've been wondering, what exactly is a guru? Also, how does one know if they have found their guru? Thanks. And one more. Thanks. And one more thanks. Great question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kaustubha, you're a guru, wouldn't you say that?
No, I wouldn't.
I ask you questions, you give me answers. That makes you my teacher.
Well, I mean, I guess that's one level of teacher.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get into this. My general gist to this answering this question, it has to, I think when we hear that word, we have this picture of these people that came from India to America in the 60s and the 70s, especially, right? But I mean, they're still there.
Right.
But like these kind of charismatic figures who are sort of stemming from this yoga tradition, and they develop wide followings. What I want to do is try to bring the answer to like kind of more root it down in the tradition itself and find out what the tradition itself says. Because just because these people are apparently coming from that tradition doesn't necessarily mean that they're representing it. And so this is the first word we can think of, that a guru is a representative, right? They're not someone that's kind of like, hey, I've figured this all out, and and it's just apparent in all that I do and say. It's rather it's a person that's like really humbly saying, I'm representing my teacher, who's representing their teacher, who's representing their teacher, and we're all representing, the teachings that are found in these time-tested sacred texts, right? So the guru doesn't consider themselves like like this divine being or something. They consider themselves like Prabhupada used to use the word a postal peon.
Ooh,
right?
postal
like
peon.
A postal peon, like a postman. He's delivering a message. She's delivering a message, right? You hand it to me, I put it in the truck, right? I drive it to your place, and then I drop it off and I give it to you. And I'm not a big deal. I'm just the person that's, I'm just a representative. I'm bringing something from one place, I'm delivering it to another place. And that's really what a guru is. A guru is a conduit for a message that exists before them and will exist after them. And their goal is to be as transparent as possible, to not interfere with the clarity and the purity of that message, right? So that's important to understand right now. There's an interesting passage in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto where one king kind of recognizes that there's this avaduta Brahman. And so avaduta means this person that's just kind of very far out, not really bound by the rules of social rules, or kind of
Spiritually out of this world, sort
super
of.
eccentric, character.
But spiritual, yeah. Eccentric, but
but
deeply spiritual.
Yeah. And the king can recognize the depth of this person's spirituality and said, how did you become like this? And the person says, well, I had 24 gurus. And, well, tell me about them. And then he begins to list each guru and what he learned from that guru. But some of these gurus are like actual people. This was an unusual list of gurus. It wasn't, it was like some of them were animals. Some of them were even inanimate objects, but like the spiritual message that he garnered from each one. So in one sense, the guru just means person that's become a conduit for that pure, unadulterated message. They're delivering that message without changing it from one person to the next. But let's take it on a more practical level. The question is, who is a guru? What is a guru? And how do I know if I found one? Well, a guru is someone that's going to commit to helping another person achieve the goal of yoga. That nature that exists within all of us, that Satchit Ananda, that experience of my own eternality, the depth of knowledge, my own blissful nature, the guru is committed. I'm going to help you uncover that and particularly since we're presenting Bhakti Yoga, we understand that the very goal of yoga is called, Krishna Prema, or pure love for God. So the guru is committed to helping you uncover that. But there's so many texts out there, there's such a wide variety of teachings. And there's so many different kinds of people with different kinds of psychologies and different situations that they're in. Some people are married, some people aren't married, some people, have business abilities, some people don't have any, some people are naturally renounced, some people are, have a life that's full of attachments. What the guru is going to, because they're learned in this tradition, learned in these texts, they have realization about them. They can help an individual practice it in a way that's most appropriate and effective for them. And so that's really essential. The guru's not doing, it's not like this, try to kick out all these kind of like romantic or stereotypical ideas about, they're going to look at me in the eye and there's going to be some kind of transfer. They're going to give me a hug and suddenly everything's going to change. No, they have an understanding of how just like a doctor, they understand the medicine, and then they can understand the symptoms of the individual, and they can understand which medicine and in what doses, how will it work best for this individual person. And if the next person comes along, it may be a little different. The prescription may be a little different. So the guru is going to be a person like that. We all have a different situation in life. We have different challenges. We have different personalities or psychologies. And how to take the essence of these teachings and how to practice them and apply them in my life. That's what the guru has to do. But we should understand that, there's so much written about the guru. Don't try to figure out if I've met a guru or if I've found a guru until you find out really in depth what a guru actually is. And if you read Srila Prabhupada's books, it's all sewn throughout those books. But there's one book, I want to recommend a book. If someone really wants to get a good summary of all this, get it all in one place, you know what book I'm going to talk about, Raghu? I don't know if you're even familiar with
Sri
it.
Guru and His Grace.
Nope. It's this one right here. Okay, it's called The Guru and Disciple Book. It's a simple kind of generic name.
That.
Yeah, this is by Kripamoy Das. This is actually Genevieve Harrison's father.
I never saw that.
Yeah, it's a really good compilation of like all the different writings, and it's broken down into different sections and very practical. You really get a good idea about this. But, just to share a few things, there's so many verses written about that we can talk about, and I'll bring up a couple. But I would say this, that a guru is, you want to understand who are they a servant of? Who the guru shouldn't be seen as, first of all, they shouldn't be seen as God. And if they present themselves as God, or if they don't quite say it, but they kind of allow all their
They're
followers to
right,
believe it.
I
You
never
know?
said he never said he was God, but he is God.
Yeah, right. You get a lot of these, characters that come up. And in India, there's so many of them. And Srila Prabhupada used to say, I could get it if these Indian villagers, these simple people kind of fall for this stuff. But he was shocked that Americans, from this, progressive, country, that people would fall for this kind of thing, He was actually very surprised. But the guru is the servant, and if I see someone that I'm learning, I want to see who do they serve, not just the people below them, but like who do they serve above them? Who is their guru, and are they dedicated to that person? Is this a chain? Because that's the idea. Is this guru parampara, that it's a chain from teacher to disciple, and then that disciple becomes the teacher to the next disciple, and that disciple becomes the teacher to the next, and this is a chain that goes back. Each one carefully representing, presenting the same thing, but according to the time and the circumstance and the situation that's arisen at that time. So find someone, that's representing this tradition, and someone that can understand your nature, and someone that inspires you to dedicate your whole heart and your mind, that when you hear their words, that within your heart you feel a strong calling, to dedicate your life to God, then that may be the person that you really want to accept as your guru. There's it's said that there should be a relationship of firm friendship between the guru and the disciple. So it's not just a relationship of teacher and student, like I'm going to learn from them and then I'm going to walk away and I don't need them anymore because I've learned what I've come to learn. But it's a relationship of love. So also within the heart, you should feel that genuine affection for one's guru, and a desire to serve them and to please them and to satisfy them and to really assist them. There's a very famous verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, Tad Vigyanartam Sa Gurum Eva Bigachet Samit Pani Shrotariyam Brahmanishtam, that to learn this transcendental subject matter, one must approach a spiritual master. And then it gives the symptoms. First it says how to approach them. How does the disciple approach the guru? And it says samit pani, which literally means carrying wood, right? Carrying wood. And the idea there is that in a traditional guru's ashram, the guru would be performing sacrifice, and that sacrifice would involve the fire. And so the disciples will go out and gather the wood, assist the guru in their sacrifice, in their service, in their seva, in what they're trying to give back to the world. I want to assist you in that. And so it's not just I'm questioning you and I'm getting the answers and then I don't need you, but it's really like, I love you, I admire you, I appreciate what you're giving back to the world, and I want to help you do that. And I'm ready to sacrifice for that. I'm ready to carry the wood. And then it says, Shrotariyam Brahmanishtam. Because the guru has heard very nicely themselves and assimilated this message of themselves, Brahmanishtam, that they're not only learned, but they're Brahmanishtam, they are firmly fixed in the absolute truth. They're firmly fixed in devotional service themselves. So that's the kind of person we're looking for here. And that will manifest, and this is also very important, is that the person gains control. Their lower nature has been completely controlled. So like another very famous verse from the Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Yo Vishasheti Dira, Sarvam Apimam Pridivim Sasisyat. That a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue and the belly and the genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Right? So it's a person that has sense control. It's a person that's representing the Bhakti-yoga tradition. It's a person that has genuine affection for you and you have genuine affection for them. It's a person that when they speak from within the heart, you feel inspired to give your heart, give your life, give your, sacrifice, dedicate yourself completely. It's a person whose words, they're not just making them up themselves, but they're like a postal peon. They're the art and the beauty of it is that they're not making up anything, but they have the ability to tailor it to the time and the circumstances so that the next person can understand it as it is, right? As it is. And beware, beware of all kinds of charlatans, because they're out there. Don't be so naive. And this is something that I also see. It's like as Western people that come to Eastern spirituality, a lot of times we may come with having kind of like seeing the hypocrisy in a lot of the religious tradition that we may have been raised in, right? And but then somehow we want to embrace a culture that's more less narrow-minded, more accepting of all different traditions and paths and so on. But then we give up our discernment, right? We kind of let that go, and when we just accept anyone, don't be so naive. There's going to be charlatans and cheaters and con men and snake oil people in all the different traditions, and it's definitely not missing from the Eastern traditions. A lot of people pop up like they're a guru and this and that, and we just see one after another, their own deceit, So I'd recommend being careful about that, and check out that book, that Guru Disciple book. I think it's very helpful. And that's just something to get started with. What I've said, but I hope that's helpful.
It was beautiful.
All right. What do you got? Some jelly beans there? What do you got? What you got? Some Easter candy?
A little chocolate egg. For Jesus. For Jesus, Jesus would have wanted me to eat that chocolate peanut butter egg. Mara, can you look up the origins of snake oil? I'm really actually interested.
Snake oil.
Snake oil.
Are you?
Can I elaborate on the guru thing very briefly?
Please.
Not that you didn't cover it all. But
I didn't cover it all. There's so much to cover. Let's just get started.
You covered it super thoroughly, but to Sherry, because it's a big question. I found in my life, Krishna or God or the universe, whatever, tagged people to touch my heart and turn me towards God. They weren't even necessarily very spiritual people or deep people, but there's been gurus in my life that have just sort of goaded me forward or pushed me, poked me in a particular direction.
Yeah.
It could have even been a few words that came out of their mouth, but they themselves weren't necessarily even fully embracing it. So when I like to do these things where I just go through everybody that has touched me in a spiritual way and think, wow, this person's been a teacher for me. This person's been a teacher for me. Then I have to, then sometimes parents kind of be that as well. And then as I got serious on a spiritual path, I've had people in my life on a regular basis to this day that have given me very practical instructions. And I consider them a guru, that I'll go to them. I consider them wiser than me, more evolved than me. That doesn't mean they're perfected beings, but it means Krishna or God has tagged them uniquely to help me. And I see that in them. And they speak to me in a way maybe that somebody else couldn't speak to me. And I have peers, Kaustubha is one of them, people that are my friends, that I feel like I like these people. I like the way they live. And in one sense, they're a guru also. And then finally, we have this initiating guru, one who gives us officially, gives us the holy name, perhaps gives us a name, something like that, the Diksha guru. Traditionally, they played a less upfront role in the life of the student. I know with Raghunath Swami, who's got thousands of disciples. Most disciples never get, to sit with him and talk with him on a regular basis because he's so sought after. He's got his bandwidth. He can't get to them at least in person. But that's a Diksha guru. And that might be the question, maybe you're struggling with what is a guru, but all those people to me have been gurus. And I think Kaustubha quoted the thing about, what was it, Dattatreya, the 24 gurus. And people say things like, yeah, my child is my guru, or, my little baby is my guru. Like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean I should wet my pants? No, it means the kid is doing something, and because I have some spiritual insight, I'm seeing that child do something, and I'm taking a lesson from this child.
But,
So
okay,
in that sense, when you're
yeah, please finish. And
go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, so there is teachings of truth everywhere, especially as you become more and more God conscious. You'll see teachings of truth, just like as Kaustubha was saying, the 24 gurus. They saw the guru in the earth. They saw the guru in the tree, in the mountains, in the air, in the sky. Those are all gurus, because we're seeing something and extracting truth out of it. So that's going to happen as we become more God conscious. We'll see the teachings of truth everywhere, and then some people will fully embody that for us.
True. But then, and let me just add to that, but there's even in Bhagavatam, I should go back and look at this because I remember reading it, but like even when that Avaduta Brahmana explained all these gurus, the bumblebee is a guru, and this is a guru, and that is a guru for me. But he'll go on to explain at the end that you can't understand them without having the Shastra, right? In other words, the Shastra means the sacred text. So like whatever you're learning, they said that there's these three, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So Guru means this person who plays the role of the conduit of this truth. Sadhu means like the great teachers of this in the past, you could say, the exemplars of it. And Shastra means the sacred texts themselves. So we want to be careful that, I'm picking up lessons from everyone, but those lessons may not actually be lessons that are truth. But so they can be checked by if they need to be consistent with the teachings of the Shastra. And so therefore, when you look at a guru is they're a person that's speaking from the Shastra. That's their job, is to take the message of the Shastra and present it in a way that we can understand it and apply it. And if there's one of these so-called guru figures and they're never referring to the Shastra, they're just kind of making it up as they go, kind of like giving this quasi-spiritual, kind of quasi-Vedic, quasi-Yogic kind of
quasi-spiritual.
Yeah, it's like that's a red flag.
Am I quasi-spiritual?
No, man.
I'm a little quasi-spiritual.
Speaking from Bhagavatam.
Yeah, if you're speaking from the Bhagavatam, it's not quasi-spiritual.
Okay.
Anyway, just check it in with me.
All right. Well, I got a question for you, Mr.
Riddle me.
Guru, right?
Mara, snake oil. You got the answer to that?
Oh, snake oil.
Yeah, I have some interesting stuff here.
Okay, let's hear first.
Okay. Oil from Chinese water snakes has for centuries been used in Chinese traditional medicine to treat joint pain such as arthritis. So it's been suggested that the use of snake oil in the United States may have originated with Chinese railway laborers in the mid-19th century.
It probably had some truth in it.
Exactly.
It started like leeches, They're like in Ayurveda, they use leeches to drain, and then bloodletting. Those are all part of like ancient medical traditions.
But how did the snake oil salesman get their reputation then?
Well, then in 1906, Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment was examined, and it was found to be drastically overpriced and of limited value.
Mm-hmm. What was his name again?
Like Big Pharma.
Clark Stanley.
Yeah. Bogus guru.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Stanley.
Clark Stanley, snake oil salesman.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right, Raghu, I got a question for you.
What you got?
And this is coming from Abir Asrani in Mumbai.
Love this guy.
It says from Mumbai ? Right? But I think
he's from Mumbai, but I wasn't certain.
He doesn't live in Mumbai,
Okay.
but he's from Mumbai. He's a Bombay boy.
Okay, quiz for you, Raghu. What do you call a person from Mumbai?
A Bombay boy.
I suppose that's one thing you call him, a Bombay boy.
Mumbian?
Nope.
A mummy?
A Mumbai car.
Really?
Mumbai car. Yeah.
Mumbai car.
There's someone back me up from Mumbai, so I know I said it right. If I got it right, let me know. If I got it wrong, let me know. All right.
I like
so
Delhiwala. A Delhiwala.
Delhiwala. This is coming from Abir. In a previous class, Raghu Prabhu mentioned that there's a difference between self-deprecation and humble honesty when identifying one's own shortcomings. I struggle with this difference on a daily basis And when I identify my flaws, which is often, I feel disheartened and unmotivated. How should one correctly go about self-criticism and introspection? How can I be honest with myself without evoking self-hate? Moreover, once I identify my shortcomings, how do I turn them from being a hindrance to a means for spiritual growth? I hope my thoughts appear coherent, and any advice on this matter would soothe my confused mind.
Sweet guy. Right?
Hit it.
Thank you, Abir. So Abir's referring to this idea of this self-loathing that plagues people. And we were talking about humility. Where does humility fit in? We're telling people to be humble. Humility attracts divinity. Humility attracts truth. It attracts God, right? Whereas arrogance, entitlement repels truth. Just like in our own life, we see someone arrogant, we're like repelled by it. It's the same with a connection with God. Our humility and our versus our arrogance either attracts or repels information. You can't even get realization if we're arrogant. At the same time, we suffer a lot of times from this lack of self-worth. I've established, this may not help, but I'm going to try. I've established, certain like guardrails in my life where if I go too far, I hear like, in those cars that give like a little warning sign. If you cross the double line, a little beep, 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 and shakes the steering wheel. So I've put certain things in my life where if I start to go into non-spiritual thinking, behavior, speech, actions, that I'll get a red flags or a beep beep or a shaking of the steering wheel, triggers in myself to protect me from going there. One of them is when I start beating myself up. I immediately say, this is not God conscious. Why? Because God's in my heart. There's an altar in my heart that I'm part of. That doesn't mean my behavior might be good. I might do something that lacks integrity. That's okay. I, by nature, my very essential value is I'm a pure spirit soul. It's been there since my birth. I'm part of God. Any type of beating myself up is beating God up. Who are we to beat God up? So we should just lock that in. We are pure spiritual beings. Another one is when I see other people acting in a way that I don't like, and I have some hate towards them. Sometimes I put on the whatever, they open the internet or Facebook, and it's like, who's that asshole? Who's that jerk? I can't believe. And as soon as I have that, where I don't like that person like that, and I despise that person, hate that person, that's my problem. That's my problem. That means I have hate. If you hate somebody, that means you have hate in your heart. And that's a problem. Why? Because they also have an altar in their heart. They're also part of God. You might hate their activities, but to hate them means you're off track spiritually. And that's what separates us, I think, people practicing bhakti from others who want to just call everybody out. Everybody's actually part and connected to God. And once I really start to despise, that means I'm despicable. I'm acting in a despicable way. And the third thing is, if our work has to be connected to our service to God somehow. If we can create that bridge, how our work is connected to His service. Maybe it's not our paid job. Maybe it's what I do in my off hours. And because in that activity of seva, you're going to come across a lot of problems. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be overwhelming sometimes. There's going to be people who are like, think you're the coolest for what you do. And it's going to sort of affect your ego. But you're going to have to go on anyway and do it with less ego. There's going to be people who are going to hate you for doing what you're doing. And you're going to have to do it anyway. You can't get disrailed because someone writes to Apple podcast reviews and says, Raghunath's a jackass. I got to do it anyway. I can't get, oh my God, I'm a jackass. Everybody must think I'm a jackass. We can't let that disrail us from our service. We have to become so focused that if there was everybody in the world was against us, we'd still be doing our service. And if they throw me in prison, I'll be doing my service. Somehow in my mind, I'll be doing that service. So praise and hate within our work, we've got to carry on anyway. Arjuna is a warrior, and he's incredibly humble because he's doing it even though he didn't feel like it was right. His senses didn't want to do it, and Krishna said, do it anyway. And he did it because he felt like, this is what Krishna wants. This, I know in my heart, this is what Krishna wants. And he did it. So humble doesn't mean play it small, although it could mean play it small. Sometimes I'm doing things in too big of a way, and I need to back off. Right? Sometimes, let's use a yoga class. Sometimes I'm doing yoga, and I feel like the teacher says, do something difficult, and a difficult pose. And so I have to work on it, and I'm trying and again. I'm doing something very extravagant, yoga asana, even when everyone's doing maybe less, but I'm going to do more. But I'm doing it for the right reason. That's humility if I'm working on myself. If I'm not doing it for showing off or living in my ego. At the same time, sometimes the teacher could say, try. And I was like, I don't want to try. I'm going to make a fool out of myself. That's also part of the ego. We just have to do these things without ego. And so I think the safe bet is, don't go to these places where you're crucifying yourself. I don't know if that's easier said than done. But for me, I just try to keep those parameters. When I start beating myself up, I'm off track. And I also believe the process that we're part of starts to reveal itself as time goes on. I don't have to think myself so damn cool anymore. As I add information and wisdom to my life by studying on a regular basis, suppose I was very beautiful, and the Bhagavatam says you're not the body. But I've been using my beauty to get a cop pulls me over, and I say, hello, officer. And I wink at him. And he says, oh, Mr. Capo, you can go. You're quite attractive.
Is that your strategy?
That's my strategy. I wink at cops, and they let me go.
I thought you had that sticker or that special card or something like that.
I do have to get out of jail free card. But anyway, the idea is, if I've been using that as my currency, as I get older, that currency, my body starts to melt. That happens to my skin. We look less attractive. But because I've been cultivating bhakti and cultivating knowledge that I'm something more subtle than my body, it starts to become more obvious as I get older. I thought I was the controller. I thought I could own my wife and my kids. And as they get older, everybody drifts from me. So these realizations come out as I put them into practice. I think people who are in a 12-step program, if they're new to recovery, someone says, you just got to surrender to this program and work the steps. And what happens is they seem like, this is crazy. This is out of control. Who could do this? And as they get that sobriety, it starts to make more and more sense to them. And they say, what was I thinking? They start to get to this point. What was I thinking? So I think these things will start to manifest also as we practice bhakti on a regular basis. And I think Krishna will also reveal them to us. And if there's an excessive amount of self-hate, generally there's been some trauma with a capital T, and that we have to really look at as well. We might have to go outside the regular, modality, because if you start hating yourself and hating other people, or not trusting yourself or not trusting other people, that's going to screw up your inner circle of your bhakti practice. I can't bring my hate of, generally if I hate other people, there's some self-hate there. Generally, if I don't trust other people, that means I don't even trust myself. So if I bring that dentedness within sacred circles, I'm going to make offenses on a regular basis. So that has to be very, very deeply examined. And usually that stuff comes from trauma with a capital T. And so that should be examined. What do you think about that?
Thank you. Thank you for
That's
sharing
useful.
that. I believe it will be.
Kaustubha, you ready?
Yeah, this is for both of us, actually.
Yeah. Who's it from? It's from Jeroen. Jeroen, our new friend from the Netherlands.
I was wondering how to pronounce that. You just did it like it was nothing. Can you do the last
You
name?
know why? I've spent a lot of time in Benelux. Do you know that?
Benelux.
Mara's like, he's more
have you?
cultured than I thought. He spends time in Benelux.
I didn't think he knew the word Benelux.
It's Belgium.
We
Wait a
did this
second.
once before. I got it wrong.
Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg.
That's right.
A very tiny, beautiful
Liechtenstein
country.
is not part of it.
No, Liechtenstein is near Switzerland. Very tiny. That's where you do all the offshore banking. Liechtenstein.
Okay. Offshore?
Well, it's onshore. It's on. They have privacy banking,
Okay.
private banking.
Okay. So let's hear the question.
Everybody's looking to me like he must be loaded. No, I just know this stuff in case I ever do get loaded.
You got a plan?
First of all, I wanted to thank you and Kaustubha, Raghunath, and Mara. First, I wanted to thank you three for the beautiful service you provide with WAS, Wisdom of the Sages, Bhakti, and Bhakti 101, of course. I was a daily other, and now, since a short time working from home, I can listen on Zoom at least a few times a week from the Netherlands. Very grateful for this connection. This is my burning question. I start my day's chanting rounds of japa, but somehow it always feels a bit blunt or inappropriate to just sit down and immediately start chanting God's name. Is there a custom or even a ritual prayer to be performed before starting with the Maha Mantra? Love the answer. Sharon from the Netherlands.
Okay. So should I go first and then you can share your thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to hear from you.
First of all, I think I love where the question's coming from because it's a person that's taking their practice and not just doing it, but wanting to do it well, right? Trying to take this beyond the mechanical level and become absorbed in it. Now, I don't have one prescription for this, but I think there's many things one can do. The idea is before one sits to meditate, or as one sits, let's say, then you want to settle your mind in some way. You want to, because our minds are, particularly in the world that we live in nowadays, our minds get stuck on tracks where they're running and running and running and running and running. You want to stop that. You want to, for this time period, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to chant japa for the next half hour. All right, great. As I sit down, I want to do something that's going to take my mind out of the world and the running that it's been doing, and kind of like if it was a chalkboard, kind of like erase it. And now I'm going to write, if I spoke about this in one of the Bhakti 101s, which by the way is today at 10:30, correct, Mara? 10:30? Yeah, okay. We'll continue with that. But it's kind of like, imagine your mind is like a chalkboard, and with every mantra you chant, like when you go from bead to bead, you're kind of erasing the chalkboard and then writing the next mantra nice and clear, That's what we're doing with the mind. And so what to speak of when you're sitting down to put that mantra in the mind, you want to have that erased, you want to, all of your thoughts and all of the passions and all of the problems and all of the, whatever's been clouding your mind, when you sit down to chant, you want to do something that's going to kind of refresh it so that you can dedicate it fully and have that mantra ring nice and clear in the mind. So here's just a few ideas. Some people chant a Mangalacharna, right? Om Jnana Timirandasya. You can go through a series of prayers where you sit down, take a few deep breaths, and memorize some prayers. Those prayers are offering one's respect to all the great teachers in the lineage and offering respect to Radha and Krishna, like that. That's a great way to do it, One can have, here's another thing. There are many verses that glorify the Maha Mantra and the chanting of these names. So one can, I have this one book. I never really completed it, but it was a good practice while I was doing it. But I tried to really beautifully kind of write these verses down in my own handwriting, and as you write them, you begin to memorize them. And then before you chant, you can take out that book and just read a couple of those verses so that just to prepare your mind for the beauty and the seriousness, etc., of what you're about to do. That's another way of resetting the mind. Some people might do pranayama because pranayama is very effective in settling the mind. Some people may do achmana, where you put some water in your palm and you chant a mantra into the water and you drink that. even just the act of doing that is a way of settling down and stepping out of one world and into the next. So things like that can be helpful. And Raghu, I'd like to hear what you do.
Well, I'm going to tell you not just what I do, but what I know people do. Some people like to just wake up and start chanting. Like wake up, start chanting. I like the idea of akshman. Akshman is when you're pouring water in your hand, you're chanting mantras into the water, and then you're drinking the water. That's another thing, if you're familiar with that. I like, at the very least, washing your hands as a sign of like, I'm cleansing or bathing. So
Bathing is important, yeah.
Bathing is important. Well, some people just wake up and chant. And not just like ordinary people, like people that I find evolved do stuff like that. I like to chant outside. There's something about being outside where I can chant loudly. I like to chant like I'm praying loudly and like I'm petitioning. And it is a type of like, I'm just diving right in, but in that diving, it's sort of like the conversation's happening. It's my conversation with God, so to speak. And I don't like to go in, it's like a conversation with Kaustubha. I want to look him in the eyes. I want to sit in front of him and look him in the eyes. So in the same sense, that's a good way for me to start japa, as if I'm actually petitioning God, universe, sweet baby Krishna, to enter into my life. With that type of voice, I could dive right into it. So that's what I would say. And by the way, if you are listening to the show and you haven't even tried chanting on mantras or on malas, try it. Get some 108 beads, 108 beads. They're like rosaries. I think it's actually 2 times the rosary. I think the rosary is 54. And just chant the Maha Mantra once on each bead. Now, some of you are not doing it, and I'm looking at faces right now. I'm not going to call names, but you know who you are, and so do I. But I say, give it an experiment. Why not? Just like if I say you can do 100 push-ups, and say, no, I can't. Do an experiment. Do, 15 a day, 20 a day. And there's a person who's done it before. Do an experiment where you say, you know what? I'm going to chant one round on my malas every day for 1 month. And I'm going to do it in a very, I'm going to do it in a way where I'm sort of like sitting in peace, no distractions, and just where I can focus. Maybe it's going for a walk and try not to be distracted, and do it every day for a month. And maybe every day you write something down. Nothing today. Felt nothing. I felt great today. I feel good about it today. And at the end of your month, that's how we tell things work. You do little experiments. And I'm not saying do it all day long, although you could do that too. I think a pilgrimage is like an experiment where you just dive into it deep and whoa, but do little, there's a little investment, but there's a massive return.
All right.
So that wasn't directly with your question, but I'm just trying to encourage the community, because you can't really say, I can't really sort of taste the pudding unless I put it in my mouth. I can't say, pudding looks sort of good. Looks good. You don't know it's good. Eat it. And then tell me if it's good. So that's what we're asking.
The proof of the pudding.
Right, you ready?
Yeah.
Go for the pudding. Eat it. Put it in your mouth. And take a bath. I'm just kidding. But you might want to take a bath before you start chanting.
Before you start eating pudding.
All right. Thank you so very much for all your valuable work, Kaustubha. This is from Anonymous. You're allowed to write questions to us anonymously, by the way. I listen to Wisdom of the Sages often. Your work is a huge part of my life. I practice asana every day. I'm a yoga instructor and know there's so much to learn. As often as possible on my downtime, I'm learning and working in my yoga practice. No Netflix or other forms of material world media. Good for you. I am working
for surviving death. That's allowed.
Surviving death, yeah. And
Episode 6.
Yeah, episode 6, occasional Simpsons. Okay, I'm working on controlling my speech, and it has been a little challenging for me, as I have a family member staying with me. As you've taught, I change my mundane lenses to see that all life is working for me and not against me. What do we call that? Pronoia, as opposed to paranoia. Remember the pronoia episode?
Yeah, we had a pronoia episode like a year ago or something like that. I remember.
Yeah. There have been many moments where I felt as if I'm being pulled back to a template of who I was growing up and recognizing unhelpful samskaras. I really like the way this person wrote this. I've discovered I have a hard time speaking my truth. I don't want this person to feel isolated or that I'm inconsiderate. So I've been participating in conversations that I prefer not to in order to make this individual feel comfortable.
We've all been there. Right?
I haven't been there. I just stopped talking to them.
Okay.
You might be more delicate. I'm just like, okay, this is over. Our relationship is over. I've been holding Krishna very close to my heart, and I'm feeling my connection grow little by little daily in a beautiful way. My husband has been away for work, and that has allowed me to deepen my sadhana. He is a great person, but tapped into the material world. He's very passionate, filled with energy, and is currently working on multiple business ideas. And we'll discuss when he gets home today. We work excellently as a team, great communication, able to execute while overcoming countless obstacles in business and in life. We've run a catering company. Uh-oh.
Competition.
Competition is here. They run an excellent, world-renowned catering company.
They claim to be
Dutchess
the
County,
best.
the number one
The number
Dutchess
one.
County catering company in upstate New York. We've run a catering company, a property management company, and worked together as a couple managing a private estate in the Hamptons. And we've done all those things very well together. We make a great team, and we have a beautiful relationship as a husband and wife. I want to continue on my spiritual path as I've been, while at the same time be as supportive as I can in his goals. How can I stay true to my spiritual path while advising and possibly assisting him in his material ventures? He's a beautiful soul with a huge heart. Please help. Anonymous.
Okay.
Somebody out there. I'm looking at all the couples right now. Who's talking about who? Okay.
Well, so
Question?
first of all, let me say to Anonymous, I was really impressed with this question on several levels. Right, on several levels. I love the sincerity. I love the seriousness with which this person is practicing and changing their life. There was one sentence that really made me say, this person's really got it. Like, this person's, I think the sincerity is revealing to them how to practice well. But first, I need to say this. The second paragraph and the third paragraph, I'm not sure if they're talking about the same person or different people.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. Maybe it's that person, the husband she's talking about the entire time.
It may be the husband that she was talking about the entire time, or it may be that I have a family member that draws me into conversations that I'm not so interested in getting into, but I'm entertaining those conversations. And then there's also the relationship with my husband, or if it was all the husband. I'm going to play it the first way, as if it's two different people, although I think it doesn't really matter either way. But first, dealing with these conversations, I've discovered I have a hard time speaking my truth. I don't want this person to feel isolated or that I'm inconsiderate. That is a sign of maturity. Okay, an immature spiritual person doesn't care if they're seen as inconsiderate, right? That's a good thing that you have that sensitivity. So I've been participating in conversations that I prefer not to in order to make this individual feel comfortable. Sometimes we're going to be in a situation like that. Sometimes it's not contrary to the principles of bhakti to behave in a way that might allow something socially to play out without creating some kind of conflict. But then the next sentence was the one that I really, this would have been my advice to you, but you said it yourself. Even though you're engaged in that conversation, you don't really want to be there. And there's certain conversations that we don't want to entertain, but there's certain just like people just don't get where you're coming from, and their mind is still absorbing things that you're not, but it's not worth it to create this big conflict. But what you said next, I've been holding Krishna very close to my heart. Right. I've been holding Krishna very close to my heart, and I'm feeling my connection grow little by little daily in a beautiful way. So the idea is when you engage, it's almost like that monk story that we told some days back, right? Where it's like one monk, he kind of broke the rule and picked up a woman and carried her across the stream because she needed help, whereas a monk normally wouldn't even touch a woman. He picked her up and he carried her across, and then he let it go. Whereas the other monks saw him break the rule, and the monk was like, it was just disturbing his mind, and he was angry and confused. And the one monk said to the other, I carried her just for a moment. You've been carrying her on your mind like all day, So
How do you
might
picture her carrying that woman? Was it like a fireman's carry on her shoulders?
I
in
don't
his
think
arms?
so. I think it was more like
when
the
you
romantic
think of it, how do you
kind of
picture?
like,
So I
don't
always
picture-
think like on the shoulders, like he'd carry a 3-year-old.
No.
that couldn't
I
be
see
right.
it like this, like that kind of carry, like a 3-year-old.
Fireman's
Although
carry.
if he carried her like that, I could understand why the other monk might have been more.
The other monk,
concerned.
I'd be still thinking about it. Even after he explained himself, I was like, I'm sorry, you just don't carry a woman on your shoulders like that. Okay.
Okay, but I see that same principle playing out here. I engaged in this conversation. I really didn't want to, but I didn't want to create a big conflict. But even while I was engaged in a conversation, I was holding Krishna very close to my heart. That means that the conversation didn't deviate you from your spiritual consciousness, right? It's almost like saying, Krishna, I don't want to engage in this. I want you to know that I don't want to engage in this. I'm kind of stuck in a social position right now where on some level I have to engage with this, but please know in my heart, you're there. I don't want to engage in this. And I think, that you're only coming closer to God when you're engaged in that, even though you're stuck in that position, your intimacy with God is increasing. So I think you already understand that. If we can uplift that conversation, sometimes it's hard with people that are our family members because they know us for a whole life in a different way, and they're not going to be able to make that shift very easily, So you just entertain that conversation. You maybe you're not so talkative. They kind of they don't seem to be into that topic. Maybe they'll start to catch on. But most important point I think you already got is that you're holding Krishna very close in your heart, even when you're stuck in that circumstance. That will protect you, right? That's the first one. Now there's the question of the husband, where it's like, we're great. This person has a big, beautiful heart, but this person is really engaged in business. I have my spiritual goals. This person seems to have more material goals, right? The person appears to be really, this couple seems like quite a power couple here, right? Like they're doing all kinds of things.
Like, what am I doing wrong? I want to be more like them.
Mara's like, I got the catering business, and that's hard enough, right? But they're doing like all these things.
No, they're doing tons of stuff, Mara.
Yeah.
Are you managing any property, Mara? All right, well, come on, get on the ball here. Get your snake oil business together.
So I this is a very common issue that I see, particularly with women that come to practicing bhakti and they have maybe a marriage or a boyfriend that they love. They love this person. They're committed to this person. At the same time, their own direction in life is, it's kind of going a different way now. How is it going to disturb the marriage, damage the marriage, ruin the marriage, kind of end the marriage?
Right.
How can, and you and I have both seen, Raghunath, and people that are maybe even here with us today, people that they've really worked it out well. We've seen examples where by approaching it maturely, that even though the husband may not be coming along or the wife may not be coming along on the practice itself, that they've learned to respect it and give room for that individual to go deeper into their bhakti practice. That's what, that's at least that much we're aiming for. Now, here we have a situation where the husband, he's got ambition. He's juggling all these different things and he's successful. He's got, obviously this person appears to be a person with this kind of business acumen, this kind of natural gift to do business. And here's a thought, and because I don't know you and this person and this circumstance and all the details in it, but here's a general thought that you share with your husband, that it's so impressive that he can do all these, that he can do all these businesses and juggle them and all that, but at the same time, what's growing in your heart is the idea that even if we're successful in business and even if we make a lot of money, as the years pass, that's not where our happiness is going to come from. It's not that doing business is a bad thing. That's a skill that you've got. That's great. Let's think about how we can make this a service, a service to God, a service to humanity. Let's engage all of your business skills. This is great, and I want to assist you in that. But what concerns me is that 10, 20 years down the road, we've made a lot of money and we're not even happy. We've missed the whole point to life. In my opinion, the point in life is to uncover that loving service that's my nature. Let's see our business like in that light, right? That we're not just doing business for the sake of making money, but we're doing business for the sake of service. And let's see ourselves as servants. And as we do that business, let's see it in that light. And if we do see it in that light, we'll be happier. Our life will be more meaningful. If the husband can grasp that much and begin to see it that way, hey, when at your funeral, do you want people saying he made a lot of money, or do you want people saying, he gave so much back, and it sounds like you say your husband he's a beautiful soul with a huge heart. So my guess is that he might be able to really understand that message, and all he needs is a little fine tuning, right? Let's get the purpose. What we're doing is great, but let's clarify the purpose, and let's keep that purpose always really central in our minds as we're doing this. And in this way, we can take what would be seen as fruit of activity, which brings results, but then ultimately brings suffering, but it can become karma yoga, right? It can become a practice of yoga where we take our abilities and we engage them in service. So that's what I would recommend. See if the husband can understand this on that level. And then however you're engaged in that work, then that work actually becomes a sacrifice and offering. All right?
Very beautiful. There's many more questions, but we're out of time today. But
But
what we do with questions like that? We do rollovers, like the rollover
roll it
minutes
over.
on your iPhone, on your
Yeah.
cellular plan. Rollover questions. We hold them out for next week and stuff like that. If you have questions, email them to Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. We try to get to all of them. Unless we don't like them, then we just sort of cut them out and just say, don't do that one. But thanks to everybody for joining us. Have a happy Easter. Spend some good quality family time together, and reach out and tell somebody you appreciate them. And thanks for everybody here. Keeping my accountability, studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, Q&A day. Tomorrow, Kaustubha, maybe we can do maybe we can do the show tomorrow, 5 a.m.
We're going to do it tomorrow.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Plan on doing it tomorrow.
Plan on it tomorrow, Zoomers. We're going to be here tomorrow. Me and Kaustubha,
Okay.
pillow fight, pizza party tonight. We're making a vegan pizza. Thanks, everybody, for joining
Easter
us.
pizza?
Now,
Hey, one thing, Bhakti 101 at 10:30 to 12:30 today.
And there's a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at 9:30 today.
All right.
and next time I'll see you guys, after tomorrow, we'll be in Nepal. Say some
But
prayers.
I'm going to
for
see you
some
today hopping down the bunny trail in your yellow
Yeah.
your yellow thing. I'm looking forward to that.
Come here. Here's my bunny. Here's my little baby Rocco. We're going to have a father and son
All
trip
right, I'm looking
today.
forward to seeing Rocco. I'm going to feed him too today, some pizza.
You can't even hear what we're saying. Here we go.
Oh, hey, look at that.
What?
Here comes someone
Is that
hopping down the bunny
Lieberman?
trail. That's awesome.